Hello and welcome back to another episode of Break of Throw. I'm here with the asset, Paul Nicholson, and we're talking about three 9-dart heroes here, Nico. Jasper, Scarrott, Lee Cox, and Tommy Lishman. First off, it might be a little bit obvious, but what does it take to hit a 9-darter?
Don't ask me, Jake. I've never hit one. In competition, I hit plenty in practice. But I think what you need to do is you need to be able to obviously start a leg well. Once you got the first 180, you're not thinking 9-darter yet, but by the time you've got dart 6 in, it's firmly implanted in your brain. So what we're going to see with these examples are slightly different approaches to visit number 3, but you don't really think about it until dart 6 is in.
Well, we're going to start with Jasper Scarrott, who, as we are recording this, is the most recent player to hit a 9-darter. And we're going to start with the side and angle, Nico. What stands out to you here?
First and foremost, I think what you have to do is look at where the flight is when he draws the dart back, because it's very close to his left ear. It's actually quite a deep drawback. But I think when you do that, what you've got to understand is that you engage your left bicep if you're left-handed, the further back the hand goes. But it's in the range of doable. If it was any deeper, you'd want to shorten it. But what you can see from this diminutive player is that his action is quite compact. It fits his build. Small, compact, powerful. And there's not a great deal of aiming going on. It's just a case of drawing it back, throwing through, but the biggest thing about his throw is what he does from a different angle.
One thing I noticed actually in that clip is that he looks down when he goes up to the hockey. He looks to where he's putting his feet. Now, I have a question for you really, because for context, this is probably one of the first times you went up on that stage and threw. Is that something you might actually add into your game when you play somewhere new for the first time, and as you get more comfortable, it might start to leave your game? Or is that something, no matter where you are, no matter how comfortable you are, you're just used to it, so you're going to do it no matter what?
Some people always look down before they throw 3 darts. Ian White is one of the greatest examples of this because he's so precise with what he does with his front foot. Some people just like to have that reference point on the floor of where they'd like to stand. And they might find that spot and try and stick with it all week long if they're coming here to the MODUS Super Series. But I think with Jasper, he's quite a precise individual. He was in the army for 37 years, and I think it's all part of a process with him. When you look at this angle here, though, you can see that the flight is spinning towards that left ear. It forces a rotation in the 2 lower arm bones called the ulna and the radius. This is something that we try and fight as dart players because we want to be as linear as possible. But this obviously is something that he wants to do so that the flight is not jabbing his eye or his cheek. He wants to have that feeling of freedom. But it also comes with a bit of a drawback in a different way. It means that when the flight is twisting away and when the arm is twisting towards the left ear, you have to either throw the dart sideways out of the hand, or as you can see just here, he uses the wrist to spin it back and actually rotate the arm back where it began. So it's a really interesting action. It's all about timing.
Would you say doing something like that potentially leads to a little bit more inconsistency within the game because you kind of have to get it perfect, and if you don't, your dart could leave your hand at a completely different angle?
100%. If you look at some of the best players that have ever played the game, they don't have this. One of the best players who has had this is Ronnie Baxter. He used to address the board with the dart to the side, and then he would just throw it so swiftly that the arm would almost not spin back, it would snap back because it was so quick. Jasper's not like that. It's more of a silky smooth rhythm. And one of the inconsistencies with his game is that when he's rotating the arm back to straight, if he gets it slightly wrong, the dart's going to fishtail in the air.
One thing we saw there as well when the image became a still is that there's a tiny little gap in between his hands. He lifts his pinky and you can see a little breakthrough of his eye. We know from speaking to him that he's left eye dominant. So do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, obviously it's easier having the same dominance as your hand. So if you're right-handed, right eye dominant, it's very easy to coach that because you can keep everything in a line. But from this point here, you can see that from a left eye dominant player, the left forearm is slightly off balance. The left elbow is a little bit on the outside. But sighting with his left eye, it's going to be the tiniest little thing he can see through his hand. And that's how he's trying to sight the shots. The pinky's up, the third finger is slightly up as well, and he can see just underneath that third finger. It's so precise that we had to look at this picture many, many times to get this shot. That's how he looks. It's almost like an Alan Suter celebration.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's extremely unorthodox, but it works. That's why he's in this episode, because he did go on to hit a 9-darter. It was his debut at the MODUS Super Series, and we actually did an interview with him on a Saturday night, and he said this was the first 9-darter he'd ever hit in his career, even in practice.
Well, it does happen. You hear some people who've never had a hole-in-one, and they get it in a big tournament, and it's just a superb feat for someone who's served his country fabulously for nearly 4 decades, and darts has been on the back burner, but it just goes to show that if you get the opportunity, you can do something like this. And he also said in the interview about the 9-darter that he didn't feel particularly nervous going for visit 3. I think that's all to do with his army training, because he's been under proper pressure in his life. Trying to hit a 9-darter on a Tuesday morning, that's nothing. Fighting for your country is proper pressure, so right now it's just a case of trying to complete the puzzle. And he was able to do it. And the double 12 was an absolute pearler.
What could something like this do for the career of Jasper? Like I said, it was his debut at the MODUS Super Series. To come onto the live lounge stage and hit perfection, it's no easy task, is it? We've seen some of the greatest players in the world come on this stage and not do anything similar.
Yeah, some great players have never hit 9-darters as well. And I think what it does more than anything else is it just makes him believe that he can do great things at really great times. But it stokes the hunger, doesn't it? I want to feel like that again. That's how you feel when you win or you do something big. I want to feel like that again, and he'll want to feel like that again, that's for sure. I don't know if he's going to get another 9-darter. I mean, later in the week, you had another chance of getting a second in a week. But I know for a fact he'll want another crack at this.
Something like this is great for actually Army darts as well, isn't it? Which obviously he's a huge advocate for. It brings more eyes on him and therefore more eyes on that project.
Yeah, I think what we've seen from different projects over the years, university darts with Adam Warner, we've seen the growth of the ADC, so we're looking at both the male and female players now, but don't forget about people who have to do something else, but really want to play this game, to give them the opportunity at school, at college, university, in the armed forces, to still play at a very high level. This is something that the United States do really well with their collegiate systems. They go to the forefront and they say it's all about education, but they can play football, baseball, lacrosse, basketball, but even if you go to the Army, Navy or Air Force, you can still play these things. And I think what we're starting to see is this drip-fed mentality, especially in a town like Portsmouth, where darts is very much at the forefront right now, and people are still getting the opportunities within the armed forces. It's absolutely brilliant.
Great to see you here on this Saturday night. I just want to start off by just getting your thoughts and reflections of the week as a whole here at the Super Series.
Well, honestly, it's been absolutely fantastic. To actually be on MODUS this week has been superb. The people that I've met, the players that I've played with against have been superb, and I couldn't wish for a better week, to be honest. Yeah, great.
Let's go straight into the 9, shall we? Because that's got to be up there in terms of like some of the best moments for you, isn't it, in darts?
Oh, it's the pinnacle, to be honest. I've never hit a 9-darter before, and to do it on MODUS on that week. And again, I mentioned it before in the interview before, with Carl playing on stage. I couldn't wish for anything better. Honestly, superb.
Just have a look down at that monitor. This is the 1-for-1. What was the hand and the heart like with the double 12?
Like I say, even after the first 6 darts, and then I played for the next 3 darts, I was fine. I didn't feel any nerves or anything like that, and even the 60, the 57, and I just felt so calm. I don't know why, but I hit the double 12, and yeah, superb. Couldn't believe it.
Just want to talk about the Army darts, something that we've seen on your shirt. Just a little bit about your background in that and what Army darts does.
Well, it's a new thing actually in Army. in the army and in defence. We've actually just managed to get it as a recognised sport in defence, and that's really thanks down to people like Zara Durant, the niece of Duzzy, who's done a massive job on defence darts. But I'll tell you what, there's some good players in the Army, in the Navy, in the Air Force. Obviously, the Army the best. But yeah, it's going to grow, and I can see it being a big thing, an absolutely big thing.
Finally, let's talk about yourself then. What's the plan going forward now you've had the week here? I suppose you'll be itching to get back on there again, won't you?
If I get another chance to come on here, honestly, I will grasp it with both hands. It's been a fantastic week. There's nothing better than coming down here and going on this MODUS Super Series. Honestly, I've absolutely loved it. It's been great.
It's been a pleasure having you, Jasper. Thank you so much for all the entertainment, for everything this week. I'm sure we'll see you again at some point.
We're going to take a quick interlude during this break of throw, but make sure you stick around after the ads. Welcome back to Break of Throw. It's time to take a look at Lee Cox. As we can see here, it's his stance at the hockey. Immediately, what stands out, Nico?
He's very upright. It's always been the case. He's very proud, so the chest is out. The head is very much upwards. It's almost like someone is pulling his head out of his neck. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you see a lot of players who are over on themselves, so they're putting a lot of pressure on the right hip. Lee doesn't do that. If you look at his right leg compared to his right shoulder, he's very upright. There is a great shot of the parallel nature of that right forearm. He, though, when he draws it back, that right elbow goes slightly on the outside, a bit like Jasper Scarrott. But his grip is the thing that gets me every time, because he does something called pinching, which is what Gary Anderson does. In the middle portion of the grip, he pinches, so it means that the flight goes up and the point goes down. So when he throws the dart, he throws it with a bit of grace. There's very little aggression.
It is very similar to the likes of Gerwin Price as well, isn't it? He uses the same setup, give or take, and he throws a lot like him. Now, as a coach, I'm sure you've said to a lot of people, and we've heard a lot on this series, don't copy the throws of players. You can't throw like them. It's just going to be worse for your game. But, I mean, Lee's done some great things in the game already, throwing very similar to Gerwin Price.
Yeah, he's got the same system. It's a one-prod thing, so prod in the air, just like that. One, back and through. Same sort of rhythm as well. When he plays his best darts, his rhythm is right on point. And that's what he's got to believe in. Get that rhythm right. Follow what he did in the 9-darter. Every dart thrown with the same speed and tempo. Then there's nothing he can't achieve. He's won twice on the Challenge Tour. But you can see how upright he is. You'll see a lot more players who put more weight into their right hip and into their right ankle. He doesn't do that. He's not going to get any problems in his lower body because he's so upright.
As you mentioned, there is that little prod. What does that help with? Is it alignment?
I think it's just calibration. Some players just aren't ready to throw straight back and through. They just need a little bit of something to anchor themselves. It's a bit like a forward press in putting. Phil Mickelson has always had that small forward press, and it starts the process, and it just makes them feel more comfortable.
Lee has always been known as a big hitter, and obviously being a big hitter means that you can potentially put yourself in an opportunity to hit a 9-darter quite often. But he did do it, and ironically, it wasn't the only 9-darter we saw that day, which we'll get onto a little bit later. But talk to me about the flow here.
I've just said it. It's the rhythm. Every dart in this leg is thrown with the same speed, the same process. And I have never seen Lee as focused as this leg. Now, look at the score. It's 3-3. I don't think he hits the 9-darter if it's not 3-3. Sometimes when you're in a position of fight or flight, no pun intended, you find your best stuff. And in this leg, I think he found his ideal rhythm, his ideal focus, and the kind of player he wants to be. And just to emphasize the focus, look at that dart there, perfect. This one in the corner, but the double 12 is an absolute ripper. Look at that, it's right in the middle. Not on the wire, not in the corner, right in the heart. And if he learns anything from that 9-darter, it's not necessarily about the technique, it's about the mindset and the rhythm.
Yeah, exactly, because we've seen some great moments from Lee here, but he's also gone on to win a challenge show and stuff like that. But sometimes, potentially, the one thing you can identify with him, because his technique is almost flawless, is that the mental side of his game potentially sometimes lets him down. And like you said, hitting something like this, going to a challenge show and winning it, that's only going to help, isn't it? And when you've got the technique like this, maybe that's what he needs to focus on.
Yes, it is. I think some people get carried away with trying to win too much. What they need to focus on is what they're doing instead of what they're hitting. I know that seems a bit counterproductive, but that's the way it is. Most people, when they're practicing something, it's about what they're doing and not about the result. It's intrinsic and extrinsic. It's how do I feel as opposed to what's happened. With Lee, I think his future lies with what he's doing as opposed to what he's actually achieving.
I mean, we did see him come to the MODUS Super Series after this and actually change his setup completely. And maybe that goes into it, maybe not. Sometimes you could be right. But it was quite a drastic change in the setup, and maybe that's because of the mental side of the game, thinking you're missing something when maybe you're not.
Let's face it, Jake. When people change equipment, it's because they think something isn't working. Most people change equipment because they don't know what's happening. It's out of pure ignorance. I think Lee was playing perfectly fine with the old kit. Maybe that tungsten and the setup has run its course in his own mind. But usually, to fix something, it's either in your head or in your technique. It's not usually the equipment. If the equipment is doing something like that, it's usually something else.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said earlier on, it wasn't actually the only 9-darter we saw that day, as Tommy Lishman also went on the live lounge stage and hit a 9-darter. The only time we've ever seen multiple 9-darters in one day. But we're going to start here with the flame, all about hockey position. What stands out to you here? Because it's quite central, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite central from this point of view, but most important thing you need to look at here is where is his left eye. His left eye is left of centre, so he's not in Stephen Bunting territory where he's right off centre, but it is off centre. I think when we look at alignment, we tend to look at the front foot, but we need to look at where the eyes are. Now, I presume at this stage, based on the time I've seen Tommy play, that he's left eye dominant, just like being a left-hander like Jasper Scarrott. So he is going to be left of centre, but he's a lot more linear than Jasper was. That left elbow is a bit more on the inside. It's not exactly parallel, but it's a lot more straight back and through. And unlike Lee Cox, there's no pinching of the dart, and unlike Scarrott, there's no taking the flight towards the left ear. It's very much straight back and through. This is a great technique.
Yeah, he's another one who kind of relies on that rhythm, isn't he? And once he gets going, he does really hit full flow. He's another one, actually, who kind of, every time you see him come here, he tinkers with equipment. Maybe not as much, but it's an interesting case, really, isn't it, that someone can come to the MODUS Super Series and it almost feels like you're looking at a new set of darts or a new setup every single time. And if it's not a drastic change, sometimes you're never going to know until you come up on this stage where, you know, the lights shine the brightest if your technique and your equipment is going to work, really.
That's a really good point, actually, because I hear of a lot of people changing equipment in practice and then going back to what they were using before when they're playing a game. If you are going to make a change, test it. And the time to test it is when you're under pressure. Some people, and Peter Wright said this in the past, I can use anything and score 180s in practice. But I've got to figure out what I need to use when the pressure is on, because it's very different when the hand is a bit sweatier, when the hand's a bit, you know, where it's going to quiver a bit more when you're a bit more nervous. So you've got to test these things under pressure, and if there are minor tweaks that Tommy's making, I applaud it if he's doing them for the right reasons.
We're seeing a side-on angle here of Tommy Lishman. Talk to me about this, Nico. Talk to me about the follow-through.
The follow-through on darts 2 and 3 was actually better in that shot there. First one, you can see Owen Binks in the background there. The hand is going towards Owen on the first dart. On the next two, it's a bit more through and punctuated. That's what he should focus on when it comes to that area of his game. But what I like is the elbow height, consistent through the entire 3 throws, but stop walking on dart 3. How many times have we said that about a player? And I think we've got to get T-shirts made with this on, because I think it's the biggest bad habit in the sport.
One thing I notice about Tommy every time he's here is that sometimes there really is a fluctuation of that pace. He likes the rhythm, but sometimes he chooses to slow down. Maybe it's down to the situation, maybe it's just down to how he's feeling on the day. But what makes that decision for you?
It is how you're feeling. I had a mentor when I was growing up called Gary Robson, played at Lakeside many, many, many times. And I noticed when I first met Gary that early in a tournament, he was quite methodical. By the end of the tournament, he would flow. And I asked him about it once, and he said, when I get more comfortable, I speed up. I think Tommy's the same. I think it's about finding some comfort in a few early games, and then later on, he can speed up. But on his 9-darter, he didn't do that.
Yeah, just before we move on to that 9-darter, I do want to preface that this was in a challenge that we do at the MODUS Super Series, this footage. And it was actually where Andreas Harrison hit 3 bullseyes in a row, and Tommy Lishman stepped up and hit 3 bullseyes himself. Now, again, it was for a challenge, but that is ridiculous, really, isn't it? And it's a little bit about mentality. I mean, to do that, the clip went viral. It's just kind of a crazy moment, and the composure to do something like that is applauded, even in a challenge.
It's one-upmanship is what it is. You see someone do something, and the next thing you want to do is beat it. I mean, when Justin Smith was doing the bullseye challenge here, everybody saw him leave the stage and start skipping back to the practice room, and people were thinking, right, the first thing they want to do is try and beat that. So when you see Andreas Harrison hit 3 bulls, your first thought is, I want to match it. You can't exactly get better than that, unless you get another visit and get 6 in a row, of course. But the fact is, when you see someone do something, you want to get better, and you want to improve on what they have done. He was able to match it, fair play.
And exactly, that's a perfect segue to this, because Lee Cox hit a 9-darter earlier in this day. Tommy Lishman comes out, I think it's the game after, actually, and then produces perfection. And as you can see here, he really was in full flow.
Great rhythm on that first visit. It was very much a tick-tock situation, so it's back, through, back, through, back, through. Every dart thrown absolutely brilliantly. I don't think he's thinking 9-darter at this stage. It takes a bit of time to get back to the hockey. That's a little bit slower. So is this. It's a bit more deliberate.
There's a set there, isn't there?
Yeah, if you were to time those 2 visits, they'd be at least a second apart. And then it's going to get slower again. This is what I love about this 9-darter, because he knows he's on it. He knows that it's been hit in the previous game. He wants to join the party, but the deliberate nature of this entire process means that he's able to hit it when his heart is thumping through his shirt.
As we see here, he actually takes a little step back as well. And I think kind of everyone on the planet who's watching at that point, I think you can't help but think, oh, he might have overthought it here. But he shows the composure to hit the treble 20, the treble 19, and then the double 12. Given the context as well that he's seen a 9-darter earlier in the day, the game before, in fact, and then has to take a step back before hitting dart 7. It's a ridiculous level of composure, isn't it?
It really is. I think a great nickname for Tommy would be the Mimic. Because if he's mimicking Harrison when he's hitting bulls, and he's mimicking what Lee Cox does with a 9-darter, well, if anybody hits a 9-darter before he comes back to the stage, he's obviously going to do it again, isn't he? The best thing, though, is that he didn't fall over. After that, I still don't know how he did that pirouette on a raised hockey and didn't trip up. That is just as impressive as the 9-darter, in my opinion.
Talk to me a little bit about that stop before the 7th dart. Like you said, he knows he's on it, but to remain composed and to hit that 7th dart, what is he thinking at that point? He knows he's on it, but what is he truly thinking?
He's thinking, I really want to hit this. And the hardest dart of the lot is dart 7. It's the one that sets everything up. It gives you the opportunity. So once you've got dart 7, you're thinking the rest, okay, I'll just stay in rhythm. Because dart 1 doesn't have rhythm. You've got to have the walk up, you've got to have all the thoughts. As soon as dart 1 is in, you just stay where you are and you stay in your process. That's why you see a lot of people missing dart 7, because that's the hardest one.
If you could sum up what we've seen here today, Nico, what would it be?
I think it's joy, because for people like Scarrott, for Lee Cox and for Tommy Lishman, this place is what it's all about. It's almost the highlight of what they do. I know that Lee Cox has won on the Challenge Tour and Tommy's done some other stuff in his area. But the fact is, this might be the biggest thing they ever do, hitting a 9-darter here, because not everybody can.
Well, Nico, thank you very much. And thank you for watching the latest episode of Break a Throw. Stick to Pluto TV for more amazing content.